2012 elections and at least 4 months away from learning what the new congressional lines are going to look like in New York. But already we are seeing candidates jump right into the fray. Earlier this month, former Democratic Congressman Dan Maffei announced that he would like a rematch against the Republican who defeated him last year, Congresswoman Ann Marie Buerkle. And then yesterday, my next guest announced he wants another crack at the seat that he tried and failed to land in 2010. He is Matt Doheny, and he was the Republican nominee in New York's 23rd Congressional District last year, correct?
Yes.
And also independents. Did you get the independents? You did.
Yes,
okay.
I did.
So welcome back to the party.
Thank you. Nice to be back, Liz.
You filed with the FEC yesterday.
Yeah, we filed the application statement of candidacy with the Federal Election Commission yesterday morning, and we've been just doing a quick media tour around the state since.
Okay. So you came close last time, but obviously didn't work out so well.
That's correct.
What makes it different this time around?
Well, I think right now, in terms of we look at what our current congressman is doing in Congress, voting against the interest of the district and not being a leader on really the two key issues of our time, both growth, which growth creates jobs, and that certainly with a national unemployment rate of 9.1, and depends on which county you are from the northern part of the state, up or down, we just have too much unemployment. And two, nearly a $15 trillion overall national debt that we have. That is no failure of leadership, not only from our current congressman, Mr. Owens, but also of the president. We need to make a decided change in where we're going as a direction. And so that's the key in terms of what the congressman's doing. And on top of that, certainly, as you know, we had one of the 10 closest races last time, and certainly this is a traditionally Republican district post-Civil War, and so I'm going to work hard and tirelessly to make sure I have the Republican independents as well as conservative lines to unite all three, and we will have a tremendous chance to go ahead and bring the seat back.
Okay, so the conservative is the ticket there, because the conservatives went in. There was a special election that was created by Obama's tapping of the former Congressman John McHugh. This is just a little ancient history for folks who might not be remembering. There was a special election. This was the skazafavod, the creation of the verb skazafavod. Assemblywoman Didi Skazafava, she was tapped. You actually went for it at that time, didn't you?
Yeah, there was a process, and I put my name in the hat, but unfortunately wasn't selected.
Right, okay. And you backed her, sort of?
All the Republicans got behind until, obviously, we weren't, and we know what happened in the special after that.
So just briefly, she was a little bit too moderate for the likes of the conservatives. They backed Doug Hoffman. It became like a national referendum. The Tea Party really moved in. It was really quite something, and Doug Hoffman failed to make the cut, split the vote, and Bill Owens managed to squeak in there, even though it's a GOP district. Then again, we had Doug Hoffman last time around. This time around, Doug Hoffman, we are not so sure, actually. You have not had a conversation with him.
No, ma'am. And as I said before, we're going to work, reach out to all the party leaders and, the precinct people on the ground that make these decisions, again, whether it's the conservative as well as the independents and Republican parties. We've been working behind the scenes, and I will continue. And one of the reasons, as you indicated, a little bit on the early side to announce, is to do a full outreach and to make sure that people understand where I stand, my values, and that it does sync up with, those of the conservative as well as Republican and independence parties.
So what does Mike Long have to say, the state conservative party?
The one thing I will never do is speak for Chairman Long, other than to say that I consider him a very quality man. I think he's a great person. I have nothing but positive things to say about the conservative party.
But you've talked to him about this?
Oh, we chat from time to time, certainly.
Okay.
Absolutely, chat from time to time, and just there we go.
So obviously, Doug Hoffman has told the Watertown Times that he's going to wait and see what the district looks like. I mean, the district lines are going to look. There's going to be a North Country district. I mean, I don't think it's going to change enormously because the population is just not there to shift it one way or the other. Is that what you're banking on?
We agree. It's one of those things when you live way up north, when you have Ontario, Quebec, and Vermont as three of the four sides of the box, so to speak, that you can't until they change the Constitution. You have to keep the district within New York State, and certainly the exact parameters we don't know what they'll be yet. But there's going to be a North Country seat, and where the exact lines end up, who the heck knows. But I feel very confident. That's part of why we're getting out here on the early side to announce that there will be a North Country district.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about issues. You brought up the issue of debt. Would you have voted yes on the debt ceiling deal?
No, I wouldn't. Right now, as a business person, as someone who deeply understands finance and the economy, we need to make a stand and stop the insane debt. We cannot continue.
Well, even if the government would have shut down because of it?
Because I don't think the government would have shut down, number one. But number two, we have to bring this balance. We have to bring the budget into balance.
How could if enough of folks who thought like you, and you have quite a few colleagues, Republicans, who were down in D.C., who thought like you, clearly, and they were willing to vote. What if yours was the deciding vote, and you had to decide between debt ceiling raising and government shutdown. What would you do?
Well, again, I don't believe when saying government shutdown, there's all kinds of in terms of how the government can actually operate in terms of making sure people get their military paychecks and Social Security checks.
Right.
So in terms of, as someone who does understand finance, there's a lot of ways to finance your way through as a stopgap measure to make sure no services or national security needs are not, that they go unmet, to make sure they actually are met.
So it's a false choice.
I think it's very much a false choice, because on top of that, when you're worried about it, the government, shutting down or defaulting, well, have already been downgraded by Standard & Poor's.
Right.
I mean, and so that's the point. Is right now.
People think that was a political move. Do you not agree?
And it might have been, but it's still a wake-up call, because when you're on a continuing collision course with whatever insolvency as a national level looks like, we have to do something about it. Look at President Obama's baseline budget for the next 10 years, almost $1 trillion every year of debt that will continue to be added. So we're going the wrong direction. We need to make a stand. We have to make a stand.
Okay, so just there are sort of three key votes that I think that were used as bellwethers, if you will. Would you have voted in favor of the Paul Ryan budget plan?
No, I wouldn't have, for a similar reason. That if you look actually, and I've studied the Paul Ryan plan, and there's a lot of good things, but I would have voted against it because at the end of the day, if you look at the end result of the Paul Ryan budget, we don't have a balanced budget until 2063, 52 years from now.
Okay, but to balance the budget requires very deep cuts, it seems like to me. Are you willing to endorse that sort of thing?
That might be a false choice as well when you look back, 2 or 3 years where we didn't have the $1.5 trillion spending, where we've increased spending that much over that years. And so we just go back to 2008, 2007 levels of actual spending. I mean, look, Liz, we have a spending problem in this country, $2.2 trillion each year come into the federal fisc, but we spend $3-4 trillion a year. I mean, it's out of control. So certainly do we need to have seismic change, and we need to have deep structural issues that have to be examined.
Medicare,
we have to look at everything.
Security?
We have to look at everything in terms of, so those programs, make sure that they're alive. Those programs when you and I are that old. And so that's the key right now.
You should be so lucky.
Is that I hope so. So that's what we're dealing with right now.
Okay. Yesterday there was also another key vote. There was basically a vote that had to do with disaster aid, right? Which is to certain parts of the state, although not necessarily. The North Country didn't get hit as hard as other places.
Well, parts of the North Country did, but yeah.
But not like Binghamton, for example, and the Catskills. It was a surprise vote. I think that Boehner was very surprised, the Speaker, when a bunch of Republicans, many of the same folks, rejected this stopgap spending. Would you have been with them?
I haven't had a chance to study it because it was just yesterday, so I can't give you a definitive answer. But again, we need to be diligent about growth and the deficit. We need to make sure we grow the economy, because part of the way to actually cure the deficit problem is not only to deal with the structural issues, but we have to grow our way out. And the only way to grow is more employment, more revenue coming into the government.
But Matt, when you say things like, we have to draw the line, we have to really take a stand, etc., these kind of sort of harsh sort of absolutes, I think, are the kind of things that create the partisan divide in Washington and prevent people from actually coming to the table and brokering an agreement where everybody gives something up.
Well, and look, there's no question. I mean, I'm a business person. I understand how to get deals done, and I understand, what needs to actually happen to make sure we have an environment where we can go forward together. But when the other side just says we're going to keep on spending $1 trillion more than we have every single year, I don't think compromising, saying, okay, we're only going to spend $900 billion more next year than we take in, is really a good compromise on behalf of the American people.
But, for example, does FEMA need to be refunded?
Well, certainly, and I've been public on this, yesterday when people asked me, certainly we need to make sure that, whole towns were devastated, whether it's in Essex County or further, down the Hudson Valley.
We have to raise taxes to do that.
But you don't, because we have so much revenue coming in. We just have to make policy, we have to make choices to make sure that these programs that are necessary continue on, so in terms of dealing with national security and the core functions of why we really have government. But certainly part of the job of a congressperson or senator or the president himself is to be a leader on these choices. Unfortunately, Congressman Owen hasn't, and unfortunately you see what Obama wants to do as well.
So taxing millionaires, no.
Oh, without question, because right now is definitely the wrong policy. Why? Because right now we have a growth problem. Everyone wants to talk about jobs, and that's great, but I'm going to talk about growth, because only growth will lead to further employment. Right now we have very small growth, and that's leading to more unemployment here. And right now I can't think of any economic treatise ever read that said, why don't we tax the job creators, the entrepreneurs, the business people more at the exact moment we're saying, please invest more. Please go ahead and take the risk to grow your business, to start your business. Liz, it's common sense. And as a business person and as someone who understands the economy and economics, that's what I'm going to bring to the race here in the next 14 months.
Okay. It's going to be a long 14 months, quite clearly. I just want to ask you, at this point, we've got Owens with $240,000 on hand, $29K worth of debt. You've got $2.2 million worth of debt, most of that yours, if I'm not mistaken. From the last time around, you have $3,000 on hand. You have not been fundraising. You just got into it. Are you going to invest your own money again?
Well, part of the reason why we wanted to start a little bit on the early side is so we can go ahead in the fourth quarter and start raising money. And, obviously, this being one of the top 10 closest races races last year, and I'm sure it will be certainly nationally watched as well, that we'll have an advantage in terms of getting our message out and being able to raise money all over the district and wherever we can find it. But certainly, like I tell people that I'm in the race, and we're going to do what it takes to win, and certainly we need to make sure that this seat keeps part of the Republican majority, but more actually part of the pro-growth policies and programs, and we need to get this country back on the right track. And part of it is running for national office is a sacrifice, and part of this is doing my part to make sure that this country is great when you and I are old, Liz. Do
you have a presidential favorite?
I don't. And what's exciting right now is that I think there's a handful, maybe if not all of the candidates that we see on these debates on a bi-monthly basis are going to be great. And I think any of them we'll get behind, and we look forward to being on the same ticket with them, because I think people are tired. I mean, I'm all over the district, all over the North Country. People are tired of what Obama's doing, and they just really want a new change. And I think we'll have a quality candidate that will be able to deliver that message and change the presidency.
Okay, well, this is, of course, one of the races we will be watching. I want to thank you very much for coming in.
Appreciate the time, Liz.